Welcome to Defensor TV. As you well know, my name is Homero Royel Villarreal, Homer Villarreal for short. I'm the founder, publisher of El Defensor newspaper. We've served South Texas for 12 years. And basically, the job of our newspaper has been to try and educate the people as to how the power network works. And right now, there's an election around the corner, and it's very important that we look into what the power network is, who the players are, and to do that, I'm going to take one particular case, one particular race, and that race is the Peggy Bañales versus Joe Benavides for County Commissioner Precinct 1. The reason I'm taking that particular race is because it's sort of like a microcosm, it's sort of like a mirror as to what's going really inside, because the inner game, ladies and gentlemen, doesn't take place in the public. The inner game doesn't take place in the newspaper. The inner game takes place behind closed rooms. And if we look at Corpus Christi and Nueces County, many people ask me, well, they call to our newspaper and they say, well, what are the power groups that really control and influence this particular area? Well, there's basically two. And remember, this analysis is I'm looking at the world through my lens, through my perspective, and walk in my moccasins at least for a little while and look at the world a little bit the way we have been looking at it for many years. And this today is my debut, of course, on TV, my first show, never done one before. But I'm really excited because I bring a message to the little guy, not to the guy up there in the balcony looking down. Peggy Bañales has been in office a while, but what's interesting is that she basically had to choose between two power groups, and the two power groups are basically what I've talked about in the past in our newspaper, the Corpus Christi Regional Economic Development Bunch. Here you have people, builders like Joe Fulton, James Barnett. You have very powerful banks like Frost Bank. You have Mike Carroll. You have L. Jones from American Bank. You have Berry Construction. You have very powerful groups and insurances and big business people, really, that have conglomerated here in this organization known as the EDC. So this is basically one power group that controls the city. It also controls the port, in my opinion. I think good old Ruben Bonilla and the other people that sit there are pretty much part of this power group. The second power group that has a major influence in Corpus Christi and Nueces County and the surrounding area is what I call the Ortiz Rendon group. And I'm talking, of course, referring to Congressman Salomon Ortiz / his former chief of staff. I believe his name is Florencio Lencho Rendon, who recently left Congressman Ortiz's office. And I think he had a rationale. And that rationale was that he wanted to avoid the stigma of conflict of interest, and by separating from the congressman gave him more latitude to operate in business ventures, political ventures, so on and so forth. Keep in mind that Salomon Ortiz finds himself in the twilight of his life. He's an older man, and Lencho is younger, more dynamic, yet he's less polished. He lacks the social finesse. And I'll be talking about that. But Peggy Bañales pretty much has teamed up with Lencho Rendon, that is trying to accumulate power, that is trying to step in where Salomon left the void, to re-nurture the organization. He's brought in family from the Valley. And, this is politics. The truth is being put out there. Not that I have a bias here or that I'm not running for office. I'm not getting any dollars to do this. I'm just trying to put a message to educate the common guy, get him empowered, and see what we can do to humanize the institutions around us. But basically, these two power groups that I'm talking about, and I'll call the EDC versus the Ortiz group for short, for convenience, is that these two power groups pretty much are about vested interests. They're exclusive and they're not inclusive. By exclusive, I mean that it's their inner group. If you're not within their inner circle, that sectarian type of shell, it's going to be very hard to penetrate. That's why I feel that both groups, and I'm not talking about one group, but both groups, so as to be fair, usually you read the Caller Times, they'll attack the Ortiz group, but they won't talk about the EDC. Well, you're not going to see that with El Defensor. You're going to be seeing discussions on the both groups. Also, they're exclusive. What do we mean by that? Well, cronyism, political cronyism. The people that participate with them get the most, reap the most benefits. So here you have Peggy Banales. She runs for county commissioner, enters, and then she realizes, well, I'm representing what Precinct 1 covers: Calallen, Annaville, Hillcrest, the north side, and a large chunk of the west side. And then one would suppose, well, if that is her terrain of authority, then she would be addressing a lot of the issues in that community. Well, let's step back. Let's look at the figures. The numbers don't lie. She pumped what the county budget shows, 33 million into Robstown. But hold on, that's not her area. She spends most of her time with Oscar Ortiz in his satellite office there in Robstown. She spends a lot of time with the mayor and the people there in Robstown. That is not her jurisdiction. Well, she can justify it by saying, well, it's a county project and so on and so forth, which is fine. But what we're seeing is what has Peggy done that builds my case to hitch up horses with this very powerful individual, Lencho Rendon, the former chief of staff of Salomon Ortiz, this guy that has connections internationally in Washington with generals, with business people, with all entities of government. He can pick up that phone and still utilize his old connections to get the job done. This very hungry individual for power and money, and this is clearly my perspective and doesn't reflect that of any station or entity that might communicate my message. But what I'm saying is, what drove her to do that? And I zeroed in. I just did a little research so as to try and peel the onion, crack the nut, so to speak, and look inside, what's inside. And this is what I found. Peggy Banales appoints Lencho Rendon's brother back to the RTA, Mike Rendon, but also the brother-in-law, David Martinez. Sarah Saldivar, who works for Salomon Ortiz and Lencho Rendon for years. They have worked on political campaigns. They've targeted people. And now she's going to leave office, Sarah Saldive. And guess, the Color Times just reported in Political Pulse recently. Guess who's going to a guy by the name of Joseph Ramirez. And Joseph Ramirez is Lencho Rendon's nephew. So here you're starting to see a conglomeration of power, of individuals, and also recently Peggy made a suggestion. There was this Elias Vasquez from Robstown that sits in the city council, retired as a grand writer for the county. Well, guess what? He retired. They bring him back at a salary of $65,000 just to train his former aide. Train his former aide that had been sitting in that office next to him for years and years and years. Here you have $65,000 being given to this man that doesn't have to report to work. And again, guess what? He's tied in with the Borchard, Salomon Ortiz, and I believe he's a relative of Lencho Rendon's wife. So here you're starting to see a family connection and a lot of cronyism involved. What does Peggy get in return? Many ask me. Well, I'm going to get to that. But first, let me discuss the family dynasty, the hunger that exists out there. That's what, the way it's regrouping or retrenching the Ortiz faction. And we're starting to see Lencho play another role in coming in from behind the scenes, form LR Global, Then a huge contract where Joseph Ramirez and other guys worked with was just awarded by Peggy and the other commissioners, the majority